Divine alert. Your soulmate may be thinking about you right now. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this fictional, faith-inspired story begins on an ordinary night that quietly becomes unforgettable. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. Somewhere, while the world slowly settled into silence, another heart found itself reflecting on memories it had tried to leave behind. There was no dramatic announcement, no sudden miracle, only a quiet moment of honesty that arrived without warning. Your soulmate sat alone, surrounded by the stillness of the evening, realizing that some thoughts refuse to disappear no matter how much time passes. The more they tried to distract themselves, the more one familiar face continued to return to their mind, bringing questions they could no longer ignore. For a long time, they believed distance would make everything easier. They thought that if they stayed busy enough, worked harder, or focused on other responsibilities, the emotions hidden deep within would slowly fade away. Instead, the opposite happened. Every passing season seemed to reveal another lesson. Every challenge reminded them how much they had grown. Every quiet victory felt incomplete because it made them think about the people who had helped shape their journey. They realized that some connections leave behind more than memories. They leave behind wisdom, gratitude, and a lasting desire to become a better person. Don't skip because something huge is waiting for you. That evening, your soulmate opened an old notebook they had not touched in months. Between its pages were reflections written during seasons of uncertainty, moments of hope, and prayers whispered when life felt overwhelming. As they read those words, they noticed how much they had changed. The person who had written those pages had been filled with fear and hesitation. The person reading them now had learned patience, humility, and the importance of living honestly. They smiled quietly because they understood that growth often happens so gradually we only recognize it when we look back. Listen carefully. This changes everything. As the night grew darker, they found themselves thinking about the qualities they admired most in another person. It wasn't perfection they remembered. It was kindness shown during difficult moments. It was encouragement offered without expecting anything in return. It was the calm strength of someone who continued moving forward with hope even when life became uncertain. Those reflections reminded them that genuine love is not built only on powerful emotions. It is strengthened through respect, compassion, forgiveness, and the willingness to keep growing. Meanwhile, your own journey continued in ways you might not have fully noticed. The waiting had taught you resilience. The unanswered questions had deepened your wisdom. The disappointments had refined your character instead of hardening your heart. Day by day, you had become someone who valued peace over conflict, patience over haste, and gratitude over fear. Friends noticed your quiet confidence. Family appreciated your calm spirit. Without realizing it, you had become an example of hope for those around you. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. Late that night, your soulmate stepped outside beneath a sky filled with countless stars. They took a deep breath and reflected on everything life had taught them. They understood that every season, whether joyful or difficult, had carried an important purpose. The waiting had developed patience. The setbacks had built perseverance. The unexpected turns had taught humility. Looking upward, they whispered a simple prayer of gratitude, thankful not only for the joyful chapters but also for the ones that had challenged them to grow. Don't skip because this changes everything. Before returning inside, they made a quiet promise to themselves. They would no longer allow fear to decide every step. They would choose honesty over avoidance, kindness over resentment, and hope over discouragement. They understood that real transformation begins with everyday choices rather than extraordinary moments. Every act of compassion, every sincere apology, and every faithful step would become part of the person they were continuing to become. As the night came to a close, your soulmate opened their journal once again and wrote one final sentence before turning out the light: "The greatest change is not that I have all the answers. The greatest change is that I have learned to move forward with faith, gratitude, and a heart that is no longer afraid to grow." They closed the journal with a peaceful smile, unaware of exactly what tomorrow would bring, but confident that every new day held another opportunity to live with purpose and integrity. My beloved child, don't skip because the next chapter will reveal the unexpected moment when two journeys, each shaped by faith, healing, and personal growth, begin moving closer through ordinary moments that carry extraordinary meaning. Sometimes the most beautiful chapters begin quietly, one honest thought, one hopeful prayer, and one faithful step at a time. The thought they couldn't push away. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this chapter begins on the morning after a quiet night of reflection. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. Your soulmate woke before the sunrise with an unusual feeling they couldn't explain. It wasn't fear, and it wasn't excitement. It was a quiet awareness that their heart had been trying to tell them something for a very long time. For months, they had filled every hour with work, responsibilities, and endless distractions, believing that staying busy would silence the emotions they had buried. But the more they tried to ignore those feelings, the stronger they became. They realized that some memories are not meant to imprison us, they are meant to teach us. As the golden light slowly filled the room, they sat beside the window with a warm cup of coffee and watched the world wake up. The ordinary beauty of the morning reminded them how quickly life moves and how precious every opportunity truly is. They began thinking about the people who had shaped their journey, the conversations that had encouraged them, and the lessons learned through both joy and disappointment. One memory stood out more clearly than all the others. It wasn't because it was dramatic. It was because it was genuine. It reminded them that kindness leaves an imprint on the heart long after words have been forgotten. Don't skip because something huge is waiting for you. Later that afternoon, while organizing old photographs and forgotten keepsakes, your soulmate paused for a long moment. Every picture represented a chapter of growth. Every memory reminded them of who they had been and who they were becoming. They smiled as they realized they no longer wanted to live trapped by regret or fear. Instead, they wanted to become someone who valued honesty, forgiveness, and gratitude above everything else. That simple decision began changing the way they looked at every part of their life. Listen carefully. This changes everything. As the day continued, an unexpected conversation with a trusted friend brought even greater clarity. The friend gently said, "Sometimes we spend so much time wondering what tomorrow will bring that we forget to appreciate how much we've already grown." Those words settled deeply into your soulmate's heart. They understood that true progress is often quiet. It happens through small choices made every day, choosing patience instead of frustration, compassion instead of judgment, and hope instead of fear. Those daily choices had slowly transformed them without them even noticing. Meanwhile, your own life continued moving forward with quiet confidence. You had learned to find joy in simple moments and strength during difficult seasons. The waiting had made you wiser. The challenges had made you more compassionate. Instead of allowing disappointment to define your future, you chose to keep growing with courage and grace. The people around you noticed your calm spirit and admired the kindness that remained unchanged even during life's most uncertain moments. Without realizing it, you had become a source of encouragement simply by the way you lived. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. As evening arrived, your soulmate took a long walk beneath a sky slowly filling with stars. They reflected on every season of their journey and quietly whispered a prayer of gratitude. They thanked God for the lessons hidden inside the difficult chapters, for the people who had encouraged them, and for the opportunity to become someone stronger than they had once believed possible. They realized that peace does not come from knowing every answer. It comes from trusting that each faithful step has value, even when the destination cannot yet be seen. Don't skip because this changes everything. Before going to bed, they opened their journal once again and wrote, "Today I learned that hope grows every time I choose courage instead of fear. My journey is no longer about chasing certainty. It is about becoming the kind of person who lives with honesty, kindness, and faith every single day." They closed the journal with a peaceful smile, sensing that a new chapter was quietly unfolding, not because of extraordinary signs, but because their heart had finally become ready for change. My beloved child, don't skip because the next chapter will reveal an unexpected encounter that reminds both hearts how even the smallest moments can carry lasting meaning. Sometimes a simple conversation, a quiet act of kindness, or a shared moment of understanding becomes the beginning of a beautiful new season built on faith, hope, compassion, and genuine love. The unexpected encounter that neither heart saw coming. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this chapter begins on a quiet afternoon that seemed no different from any other, yet before the day was over, something inside your soulmate would change forever. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. They had spent the morning reflecting on everything life had taught them. The fears that once kept them awake no longer carried the same weight. The questions that once demanded immediate answers had slowly been replaced with patience. For the first time in a long while, they realized that peace isn't found when every mystery is solved, it is found when the heart learns to trust one step at a time. As they continued through the day, they unexpectedly met someone who had quietly observed their journey from afar. The conversation began with ordinary words, but it quickly became much deeper. The person smiled and said, "There's something different about you. You seem lighter than before." Your soulmate paused for a moment before answering honestly, "I stopped fighting every season of my life. Instead of asking why everything happened, I started asking what every experience was teaching me." Those simple words surprised even them because they revealed just how much their heart had changed. Don't skip because something huge is waiting for you. Later that afternoon, while walking home beneath the warm sunlight, memories began returning one after another. They remembered conversations that had brought hope during difficult times. They remembered kindness that had arrived when it was least expected. Most of all, they remembered the quiet strength of someone who had shown patience even when circumstances were confusing. Those memories no longer brought sadness. Instead, they filled their heart with gratitude because they understood that genuine love leaves behind lessons that continue shaping us long after moments have passed. Listen carefully. This changes everything. That evening, your soulmate sat alone with their journal once again. As they slowly turned each page, they noticed how every chapter reflected a different version of themselves. The earliest pages spoke of fear. Later pages revealed determination. The newest pages overflowed with gratitude and hope. Looking at the journey written before them, they quietly whispered, "I finally understand that growth often happens so slowly we don't recognize it until we stop and look back." A peaceful smile appeared across their face because they knew the person writing tonight was far stronger than the person who had begun the journal months before. Meanwhile, your own journey continued unfolding with quiet purpose. Without even realizing it, you had become someone who encouraged others simply through your actions. Difficult seasons had not taken away your kindness, they had strengthened it. Waiting had not weakened your hope, it had deepened your faith. Every challenge had refined your character, teaching you compassion, patience, and resilience. The people closest to you admired your calm spirit because they could see a quiet confidence that wasn't based on perfect circumstances but on inner peace. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. As darkness gently covered the evening sky, your soulmate stepped outside and looked toward the countless stars above. They reflected on every prayer they had whispered, every lesson they had learned, and every obstacle they had overcome. For the first time, they no longer wished to erase the difficult chapters of their life. They understood those chapters had shaped the wisdom they now carried. Without the waiting, they would never have learned patience. Without the uncertainty, they would never have discovered trust. Without the challenges, they would never have recognized the quiet strength that had been growing inside them all along. Don't skip because this changes everything. Before returning inside, they closed their eyes and offered one simple prayer: "Thank you for teaching me that every season has a purpose. Help me continue choosing kindness when life is difficult, honesty when fear tempts me to hide, and hope even when I cannot see the whole path ahead." As those words settled into the quiet night, an overwhelming sense of peace filled their heart. They realized they no longer needed extraordinary signs to keep moving forward. Every new day was already a gift, and every faithful step carried meaning. My beloved child, don't skip because the next chapter will reveal the beautiful turning point when two journeys, strengthened by faith, healing, and personal growth, begin moving toward one another through ordinary moments filled with extraordinary purpose. What begins as a quiet encounter will soon become a reminder that the greatest blessings often arrive gently, one conversation, one act of grace, and one faithful step at a time. The moment the silence finally began to change. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this chapter begins just a few days after your soulmate experienced the quiet awakening that had been growing inside their heart. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. The morning arrived gently, carrying with it the same sunrise they had seen hundreds of times before, yet somehow everything looked different. It wasn't because the world had changed overnight. It was because they had. The fear that once filled every quiet moment had begun losing its hold. Instead of waking with anxiety about what tomorrow might bring, they woke with gratitude for another opportunity to become wiser, kinder, and more faithful than they had been the day before. They stood beside the window watching the sunlight slowly stretch across the streets below. People hurried toward work, children laughed as they walked to school, and life continued moving forward without waiting for anyone. In that ordinary moment, your soulmate realized something they had overlooked for far too long. Life never stops inviting us to grow. Every sunrise is another chance to forgive. Every conversation is another chance to understand. Every challenge is another opportunity to discover strength we never knew we possessed. They quietly whispered, "I've spent too much time waiting for the perfect moment. Maybe the perfect moment has always been today." Don't skip because something huge is waiting for you. Later that afternoon, while taking a familiar path through a peaceful park, they noticed an elderly couple sitting together on a wooden bench. Neither of them spoke very much. They simply smiled, shared quiet moments, and watched the world around them. There was something deeply comforting about that scene. It reminded your soulmate that the strongest relationships are not built through constant excitement but through consistent faithfulness, kindness, and mutual respect. They realized they had spent too much time believing that love had to be dramatic to be meaningful, when in reality, the deepest love often speaks through patience, gentleness, and unwavering presence. Listen carefully. This changes everything. As they continued walking, memories began returning one after another. They remembered moments when fear had convinced them to remain silent instead of speaking honestly. They remembered opportunities they allowed to pass because uncertainty seemed safer than vulnerability. Yet those memories no longer filled them with regret. Instead, they became reminders of how far they had come. Every mistake had become a lesson. Every disappointment had become wisdom. Every delay had quietly strengthened their character until they were no longer the same person who had once been afraid of tomorrow. Meanwhile, your own life continued unfolding with quiet beauty. You had learned to find peace even when every answer had not yet arrived. You no longer measured your worth by circumstances outside your control. Instead, you found confidence in becoming someone who consistently chose compassion over resentment, truth over fear, and hope over discouragement. Friends admired your calm spirit without fully understanding the difficult journey that had shaped it. Family noticed how your patience had grown stronger with each passing season. Without realizing it, your life had become an example that encouraged others simply because you refused to let hardship define your future. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. That evening your soulmate returned home, opened a small wooden box filled with keepsakes from different seasons of life, and carefully looked through every item. There were handwritten notes, photographs, and reminders of moments both joyful and difficult. As they held each memory in their hands, they recognized a pattern they had never seen before. Every meaningful relationship, every challenge, and every unexpected turn had pointed them toward becoming a person of deeper integrity. Nothing had been meaningless. Even the painful chapters had quietly prepared them for the peace they were now beginning to experience. As darkness settled across the sky, they lit a small lamp beside their journal and began writing again. The words came more easily than ever before. Today I realized that healing doesn't erase the past, they wrote. Healing teaches us how to carry the past without allowing it to control our future. Every lesson has become part of who I am, and every season has prepared me for the next one. Reading those words back filled them with gratitude because they knew those sentences could never have been written by the person they used to be. Don't skip because this changes everything. Before closing the journal, they paused for a long moment and reflected on the future. They no longer felt desperate for immediate answers. They no longer believed every uncertainty had to be solved today. Instead, they trusted that each faithful step would reveal the next one in its proper time. That quiet confidence became one of the greatest gifts they had ever received. It allowed them to enjoy the present instead of constantly fearing what might happen tomorrow. Late that night, standing beneath a sky overflowing with stars, your soulmate offered another simple prayer. Thank you for every lesson that taught me patience. Thank you for every challenge that strengthened my faith. Thank you for every person who encouraged me when I couldn't see the path ahead. Above all, thank you for changing my heart before changing my circumstances. As those words disappeared into the stillness of the night, they felt a peace that could not be explained by perfect circumstances. It came from knowing they were growing into the person they had always hoped to become. My beloved child, don't skip because the next chapter will reveal the unforgettable moment when two journeys that have been quietly growing through faith, hope, and healing begin drawing closer in the most unexpected way. An ordinary day will become extraordinary, a simple conversation will open a new chapter, and both hearts will discover that sometimes the greatest blessings arrive not through dramatic miracles but through faithful hearts that never stopped growing, never stopped hoping, and never stopped believing that every season has a purpose. The day their hearts stopped running. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this chapter begins on the morning after your soulmate finally admitted something they had been trying to hide from themselves for a very long time. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. The silence that once felt heavy no longer frightened them. Instead, it became a place where they could hear their own heart clearly. They realized that every season of waiting had slowly been removing fear and replacing it with wisdom. Every unanswered question had taught patience. Every difficult goodbye had taught gratitude. Every unexpected delay had quietly prepared them for the person they were becoming. For the first time in years, they stopped asking why life had unfolded the way it had and simply whispered, "Thank you for never giving up on me while I was still learning." As the morning unfolded, they walked through familiar streets that suddenly felt completely different. The places that once reminded them of disappointment now reminded them of growth. The roads they had traveled during lonely seasons no longer carried sadness. They carried evidence that they had survived every difficult chapter that once seemed impossible. Looking around, they smiled because they realized they were stronger than they had ever imagined. They understood that strength isn't the absence of tears or uncertainty. True strength is choosing hope after disappointment, choosing forgiveness after hurt, and choosing faith even when tomorrow remains unseen. Don't skip because something huge is waiting for you. That afternoon, while sitting quietly beneath the shade of a large tree, your soulmate opened their journal and began reading words they had written nearly a year earlier. Every page revealed someone desperately searching for direction. Every sentence reflected a heart longing for peace. As they compared those old pages with the person they had become, tears quietly filled their eyes, not from sadness, but from gratitude. They realized that every prayer had been answered in ways they never expected. They had prayed for life to become easier, but instead they had become stronger. They had prayed for immediate answers, but instead they had received wisdom. They had prayed for certainty, but instead they had discovered faith. Listen carefully. This changes everything. As they closed the journal, an unexpected message arrived from an old friend they had not spoken with for quite some time. The conversation began simply, yet it soon became deeply meaningful. They spoke about growth, second chances, forgiveness, and the surprising ways difficult seasons can shape a person's character. Before saying goodbye, the friend smiled and quietly said, "Sometimes the greatest miracle isn't that everything changes around us. The greatest miracle is waking up one day and realizing your heart has changed." Those words echoed in your soulmate's mind long after the conversation ended. Meanwhile, your own journey continued unfolding in quiet but remarkable ways. The waiting had refined your patience. The disappointments had strengthened your compassion. The unanswered questions had taught you to trust one faithful step at a time. You had stopped measuring your life by what had not yet happened and started appreciating every blessing already surrounding you. The kindness you showed others became natural. The peace you carried became noticeable. Even during difficult moments, your calm spirit reminded people that hope is stronger than fear when it is rooted in faith and perseverance. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. As evening settled across the sky, your soulmate found themselves watching the sunset with a peaceful heart. The brilliant colors stretching across the horizon reminded them that every ending quietly makes room for another beginning. They understood that seasons are always changing. Winter eventually gives way to spring. Night always welcomes the dawn. Difficult chapters eventually become testimonies of resilience. That realization filled them with confidence they had never known before. They no longer feared what tomorrow might bring because they trusted that every season carried purpose. Don't skip because this changes everything. Later that night, they knelt in quiet prayer and said, "Thank you for teaching me that love grows through patience, faith grows through perseverance, and hope grows every time I refuse to give up. Help me continue becoming someone who brings light into the lives of others." As they finished praying, a deep sense of peace settled over their heart. It wasn't excitement about knowing the future. It was confidence that whatever tomorrow held, they would face it with honesty, humility, courage, and grace. Before turning out the light, your soulmate wrote one final sentence in their journal: "Today I stopped running from my story." Every chapter, every lesson, every victory, and every disappointment has helped shape the person I am becoming. My greatest blessing was never a perfect life, it was a transformed heart. They closed the journal with a smile that came from genuine gratitude, knowing the most beautiful chapters of their journey were still waiting to unfold. My beloved child, don't skip because the next chapter will reveal the unforgettable turning point where two journeys, strengthened through patience, healing, and faith, begin moving toward a beautiful new season. The conversation that follows, the lessons that continue to unfold, and the quiet courage found in both hearts will prove that the greatest blessings often arrive one faithful step at a time, exactly when each heart has grown strong enough to receive them. The beautiful season that was waiting all along ****. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this is the final chapter of this fictional, faith-inspired journey. Stay till the very end because what happened next changed everything. There were days when both of you wondered if the waiting would ever end. There were quiet nights filled with questions that seemed to have no answers, and moments when hope felt difficult to hold on to. Yet every season, even the hardest one, had been shaping your hearts in ways neither of you could see. What once felt like delay slowly revealed itself as preparation. Every lesson, every prayer, every act of kindness, and every step of faith became part of a story that was leading both of you toward a deeper understanding of love, hope, and purpose. As the first light of morning filled the sky, your soulmate stood quietly by the window and smiled. They no longer looked at the future with fear. Instead, they looked at it with gratitude. They had discovered that real peace does not come from having every answer or controlling every outcome. It comes from trusting that each day offers another opportunity to grow in compassion, honesty, patience, and faith. Looking back on the journey, they realized they would not erase even the painful chapters because those very chapters had shaped the strength and wisdom they now carried. Don't skip because something huge is waiting for you. Later that day, life brought another simple but meaningful conversation. There were no dramatic promises, no impossible predictions, and no perfect fairy tale ending. Instead, there was something far more valuable: mutual respect, genuine understanding, and thankful hearts. You both recognized how much you had changed. The conversations that once felt difficult now flowed with kindness. The silence that once created distance had become peaceful understanding. You both realized that healing had not erased the past, but it had transformed the way you carried it. Listen carefully. This changes everything. Your soulmate looked at you with sincere gratitude and quietly said, "The greatest gift wasn't simply meeting someone special. The greatest gift was becoming a better person because of this journey." Those words carried no fear and no pressure. They reflected a heart that had learned humility through life's challenges and joy through perseverance. You smiled because your own journey had taught you the same truth. The waiting had become wisdom. The uncertainty had become courage. The difficult seasons had become the foundation for a stronger and more compassionate heart. Meanwhile, life continued moving forward one ordinary day at a time, yet those ordinary days became extraordinary because of the choices both of you made. You chose forgiveness instead of resentment. You chose patience instead of frustration. You chose honesty instead of fear. Those simple choices slowly built trust, and that trust became the strongest part of your connection. You discovered that lasting relationships are not sustained by constant excitement but by everyday acts of grace, respect, understanding, and faithful commitment to one another. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. As the seasons continued to pass, both of you found joy in life's smallest blessings. A peaceful walk together, a shared meal, a heartfelt conversation, a quiet evening watching the sunset, these simple moments became reminders that happiness is often found in places we once overlooked. Neither of you rushed the future anymore. You simply appreciated each new day, understanding that every sunrise was another opportunity to live with gratitude and every sunset another reminder of how far you had come. Don't skip because this changes everything. One evening, beneath a sky filled with countless stars, your soulmate offered a quiet prayer. Thank you for every lesson that taught me patience. Thank you for every challenge that strengthened my character. Thank you for every person who encouraged me when I couldn't see the path ahead. Most of all, thank you for showing me that the greatest miracle was never about changing my circumstances overnight. The greatest miracle was changing my heart. As those words faded into the peaceful night, they felt a calm confidence that no hardship could take away. My beloved child, remember this as our story comes to its close. Sometimes the greatest blessings arrive quietly. Sometimes the answers we search for are found not in extraordinary signs but in the ordinary moments where we choose love over fear, kindness over anger, hope over discouragement, and faith over doubt. Every season has purpose. Every challenge has a lesson. Every new morning carries another chance to become the person you were created to be. As the stars continued shining above, both of you stepped into tomorrow with peaceful hearts. The waiting had become preparation. The tears had become wisdom. The silence had become understanding. And the hope you carried had become stronger than ever before. Whatever the future held, you knew you could face it with courage because your hearts had been transformed through patience, compassion, and faith. Thank you for staying until the very end. May this fictional story remind you that life's most meaningful journeys are not measured by how quickly everything changes, but by how deeply our hearts grow along the way. May you continue choosing kindness when it is difficult, hope when life feels uncertain, and gratitude in every season. For every ending carries the promise of a new beginning, and every faithful step taken with love leaves behind a legacy of peace that lasts far beyond the final page.